Thanks for joining us this Friday afternoon. We have a lot for you. Molly O'Brien was just up, but now I would like to welcome in the Governor of Rhode Island, Gina Raimondo.
Hello, Kate.
Governor, thanks for coming back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be back. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's off to a fast start. And
it is, I know.
Seems like just yesterday you had your State of the State.
It almost was yesterday. It was only a week ago, but yeah.
It was only a week ago. It was very well received as perhaps one of your best speeches since being governor. And one of the highlights of the speech was the $1 billion for the schools. Talk to us how this became such a focal point of your agenda this year.
Well, because I've been spending a lot more time in schools, and no matter what town you're in, like Barrington, North Kingstown, East Greenwich, or Providence, Pawtucket, East Providence, you go into these schools and they're just not in the shape that they should be in. You know, East Providence High School is a great example. They have a beautiful swimming pool. It's been empty for years because it's in such disrepair. So I just got sick of walking into schools and seeing a bucket catching the water from a leaky ceiling and said enough is enough. The reason it's like that is because we've been ignoring the problem for too long. And so the treasurer and I put a commission together some months ago and came up with a plan to begin to address the problem. I will say, this $1 billion, it's a once-in-a-generation investment. Even that isn't enough.
We know, we've seen the report, it's upwards of $3 billion. So if we're talking about this $1 billion for 5 years, and we know it's a $250 million bond to perhaps be put on the ballot this year, would it take then 15 years to be able to get what we need to do here in the state?
So the $1 billion is, according to the report, enough to get us to a place where we have schools that are safe, warm, and dry. It's not enough to get us to a place where every school is a place where every parent would be proud to send their kids.
Okay.
So we're going to start now, $1 billion, but we're going to have to continue.
Yes.
You know, Massachusetts has done, I think, 7 bonds in the past 10 years. We've done 0. So this isn't, you know, again, we're in this mess because we haven't invested. And we've been, by the way, spending millions of dollars on Band-Aids. So let's start now, start big, be bold. But it's going to have to take continuous investment, as you say, to over the next 10 or 15 years.
Get to that point.
To get to the place where every school is one that you'd want to send your kids to. You know, I'd want to send my kids to.
And talk with us, how did you come to sports betting? This is something that looking to fill, again, this projected $200 million deficit. How did you come to this?
Because it looks like the Supreme Court is going to legalize it. It had been legal, 4 states did it, and then a law was passed which made it illegal. It's widely expected that in May or June of this year, the United States Supreme Court is going to make it legal again. Connecticut's already passed a law saying they're going to get into it. Massachusetts has, New Jersey has. I don't want to be left out. You know, by the way, it's happening. You know, I can't imagine how much betting happened on last week's Patriots game. So it's happening. So let's legalize it, put it at Twin River, and make some money on it.
So you're betting on the Supreme Court decision?
Well, yeah. Yes, it's a bet.
It's a bet. And so we asked the Department of Revenue, they're expecting about $815 million to be bet in the sports betting book. But the state's getting $23 million. Can you speak to how that number came?
Yeah. So we did a couple things. We looked at Delaware. Delaware's been doing this, a state of about our size. We looked at, you know, how much betting happens there. We studied their model. And then we assumed it would happen just at Twin River, because if you did online betting, it would require a ballot initiative.
Okay.
Whereas if you do it just at Twin River, it wouldn't.
Yep.
And then we assumed that the profit split between the state and Twin River would be the same as it is for the slot machines.
Okay.
And when you do all of that, you come to this estimate of $23 million.
Okay, because we asked that question, wanted to get that answer.
It turns out that October is the biggest betting month of the year.
That's what we've heard, yes.
So we want to get going right away so that if the Supreme Court legalizes it, we're ready to go right away, and we're online by October.
What do you think of the news today that the House and Senate has announced that there is a study commission for the line item veto? Do we expect to have any results? The Speaker will be in this afternoon, and I will ask him about this. It is something that you've been looking for, advocates have been pushing for. Are you surprised? I mean, how important is this to you?
It's very important, but it's not that it's important to me. It's important to Rhode Island. I think that 44 other states already have it. Massachusetts has had it for a long time. I don't know what there is to study. This is not an issue that needs study. It needs action. By the way, I hear it from people. I hear it from the business community. It's amazing. You hear it from everyday Rhode Islanders saying, how come we don't have it? Why, they feel that it makes us look behind the times, or, people want one more check on taxpayer protections, taxpayer money. So what I'm saying is just listen to the people and let them decide. Put it on the ballot. If Rhode Islanders don't want it, fine, we won't do it. But it's their government, it's their state, let them have a say.
We'll ask the speaker when he's in here in studio more about that. But speaking of things that could potentially go to the ballot, let's talk about where things are at with the PawSox. We have seen that the House Speaker has said he is not supportive of the Senate version. Now, of course, GoLocal teamed up with one of the top Democratic pollsters. He's worked with folks in your administration about what Rhode Islanders thought of that deal. 2/3 of them were opposed to it. Where do things stand? Should this go to the voters from the Senate version? Should the House go back to the drawing board and find another way to approach this? I mean, what's your view on where the PawSox are now?
Yeah. So, first of all, the PawSox now are in Pawtucket, and I think they ought to stay there. I don't want them going to Worcester. They belong in Pawtucket. So that's point number one. Point number two is I think this will help Pawtucket. It's more than just Rhode Island pride. Pawtucket could use a shot in the arm. This will, I believe, create jobs in Pawtucket and help revitalize the city. I don't think this should go to the voters. In Rhode Island, we don't have that, form of government. This is about $1 million a year from the state, plus or minus. That's the kind of appropriation that the legislature should appropriate. So I don't think it's not constitutional. It doesn't require change. So I think it belongs in the Assembly. At this point, it's on the House to take action. I support the deal that came out of the Senate. I support the deal that went into the Senate. The House and the Speaker have said they don't like it. They need some changes. So tell us what those changes are.
Have you had conversations with the Speaker about
yes,
this?
Yes, and he knows exactly where I stand. We've talked publicly. We've talked privately. By the way, I understand it's not popular. I understand his point. It's a difficult political decision. And, I understand that. But here's what I believe. I think it's a good deal for the taxpayers. Fundamentally, this is a good deal for the taxpayers. If the PawSox leave, we lose revenue. We lose income tax revenue, sales tax revenue. Secondly, I just think we'll regret it. It's hard politics today, but 10 years from now, if you're driving by that Apex site and it's empty and there's no PawSox and we have to take our kids to Worcester to watch a game, I think we'll regret it. So he has questions. That's fair. Fair enough. Have hearings, do your job, put a deal on the table that you think you can get behind, and then let's see if it's possible.
So why do you think there is that disconnect there between the public disapproval of it and state leaders saying it is a good deal?
I think that I'm not sure anyone's done a good enough job really explaining the facts to the people. When I talk to people one-on-one, they say, hey, Gov, why are you for that? And I say, well, right now we're on the hook for maintenance. It's going to cost the state $20+ million to repair McCoy. When I tell people that we get over $1 million a year in income tax, like if one of the Red Sox star pitchers comes down and is hurt and plays for the PawSox for a couple of weeks, he pays income. So people say, I didn't know that. And I think once you sit with people, they say, okay, I can live with that. Here's what I think the problem is. A couple years ago, the team did a really terrible job. They came forth with, I think, a terrible deal, which I did not support at that time. They essentially wanted us, the taxpayers, to give them $100 million to build a new glitzy stadium in Providence. And they didn't do a good job with it. And so that left a bad taste in Rhode Islanders' mouth. And I think people are still thinking about that deal, and it's hard to say this is apples and oranges to that.
Well, we'll see what happens. We've got the Speaker coming in. But speaking of tax credits and incentives with the state, some of the work that GoLocal has done recently, we did look into Lance Robbins and Hope Artiste Village. Commerce did put an oversight committee over that from a legal perspective to make sure that money given to developers, that there's a process of people have legal redress. Now GoLocal has uncovered some issues with Brady Sullivan, multiple properties in Rhode Island, throughout New England, lawsuits involving that. Now that's historic tax credits. But taking a step back, should Rhode Island really be looking into who it's doing business with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know the developer you referred to, Brady Sullivan. Yeah, absolutely. As you say, with the Hope Artiste, we did a lot of due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it took a long time between the initial expression of interest and when we finally did the deal. We looked into all of his prior business dealings. There were some concerns, but not enough to not move forward. But in an abundance of caution, we put some extra precautions around it. Like, at the end of the day, tenants deserve to know that they have a good landlord who's going to do a good job. So we do as much diligence as we know how to do to make sure that that doesn't happen.
And speaking of business opportunities here in the state, the latest news this week that Partners is moving forward with Care New England to look to acquire them. Now, we heard from Brown University President Christina Paxson this week. She is as out front as any Ivy League president has been about an issue, and vehement about what would happen if a Partners came down. And we actually, we had Commerce Secretary Pryor on yesterday talking about what would be the implications of shipping Rhode Islanders up to Boston. Is there a concern in your administration for what this could potentially mean to the healthcare environment in Rhode Island?
Yes. I think in order for me to support any plan, and it certainly looks like Care New England is going to need a merger one way or another, I would have to be comfortable that the jobs stay local and the care stays local, and healthcare costs don't go up. Like right now, Rhode Island does a pretty good job controlling healthcare costs. It's not as good as it should be, but relatively, we keep our costs under control. I can't get behind something where I think that will go up. Also, nobody wants to drive to Boston if you don't have to. Let's be honest.
Yes.
I'm not. You don't want to drive to Boston to go see your dermatologist or your, doctor. And so I'm pleased that Partners is interested in us. They're a brand name, top-notch operation. So I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. It could work out. But we're going to look at it through the lens of care local, jobs local, and keeping costs where they need to be.
Has there been an instance, though? I mean, we're in the shadow of the Superman building here, of a big entity coming in, Bank of America and Fleet, or a gatehouse and a journal, to any of these big monoliths absorbing the economy. I mean,
it's a risk. It's absolutely a risk. It's absolutely a risk. So they just announced it yesterday. There is a long regulatory process on this one, and we'll ask all the tough questions, and we'll see where we go.
And have you had conversations with President Paxson on this?
I have.
Yes.
I have. And look, I share her concerns. She wants to keep care local. She wants to keep talent local. We have a crane just down the road with the Wexford facility. That's coming online. That's life sciences jobs. We don't want to do anything that would dampen that. So it's complicated.
That's right. With my next question for you, again, their investment with Wexford, if all of a sudden Harvard's coming in and putting a flag in the ground, they're going to have serious concerns.
That would be fine with me. That would be fine with me. The more the merrier, but she probably might not like that.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit as well. A couple more questions for you while we have you here in the studio. Your administration, one of the things that GoLocal has brought up is your chief of staff's continued use of his consulting firm, although he's taken a step back from it. But having legislators, having political interest come before your administration, it's still his company. He hasn't left the company altogether. And Common Cause has said perhaps he should have gotten an ethics opinion. What's your stance on this?
Ultimately, that's his decision. I'm comfortable with it. He has nothing to do with the company. He has left day-to-day management. He's not getting paid by them. So, we're comfortable with it. And Common Cause did say they don't see anything wrong with it either. So it's hard to, he's worked here for a long time, so he does have relationships, but he has nothing to do with that company anymore, and I'm satisfied.
It has nothing to do with it. The bottom line does go to his business, though. Even though he hasn't left it all together, he's taken a hiatus.
But he's not getting paid. He has nothing to do with the management, so I'm comfortable with it.
Well, while we have you here, I just want to go back to the state of the state. We've seen you put forth a lot of small business initiatives this week, and you've kind of taken that step back as you approach another election season. So I know we've asked you this as you've been in the studio before, but What have been the things that you've been most proud of as governor to date?
All the jobs we've created. You know, taking over at a time when we had the highest unemployment rate in the country, I heard constantly from people saying, can you help us out? You know, can you start building again? Is it possible to have momentum? And now you look around, you see new businesses coming here, you see cranes in the sky, we've cut our unemployment rate in half. And so that's exciting. By the way, not everyone's feeling it. A lot of people are feeling our economic recovery, and that is great. A lot of people aren't. And so we have to stay at it until everybody has a good job, everybody's school is in good shape, and that's what we're going to do.
Any regrets today? Any things you would have done differently?
We don't have time for that. We don't have time for that. That's a whole other show, twice as long.
But you are entering election season. I'm sure we'll have you back here in studio moving forward. Anything you want to let viewers know before you take off?
Go Pats.
Go Pats.
It's
going to be a quiet weekend this weekend.
Yeah, we got to get ready for
next weekend. It'll be a busy weekend. Governor Raimondo, appreciate your taking the time to come into the studio.
Thank
we'll talk
you,
soon. Okay, thanks, Governor.
Weekend.
Okay, thanks everyone for watching. We are going to take a quick break here and be back in the studio.
How are you?